Evil ocean water versus the One Piece verse is something that I was very interested to do ever since it was suggested in one of my videos, clearly due to the fact that Devil Fruit users, no matter what ability they have, cannot swim or be exposed to ocean water, making this monster a natural enemy to most characters in the One Piece verse. In this video, we will take a look at what would happen if this monster had to face the One Piece characters. Would they be able to contend against it, or just simply has no chance? But before that, do not forget to blast the subscribe button and the notification bell for more of these matchup videos. Thank you. Evil Natural Water is described as the worst or the most horrible executive of the association, was accidentally created from Psycho's experiments and couldn't be controlled by any way, reacts to negative emotions such as hostility and hate, and attacks the hostile entity non-stop. But the most terrifying quality that this monster has is the ability to expand limitlessly by absorbing water, as seen later in the series, gaining more volume and energy, therefore more firepower, speed, and durability. This monster can eventually absorb the entire ocean if unchecked, and we know that the One Punch Man planet has one supersized continent and mostly consists of water. Now in chapter 156, we actually got to see this entity absorbing part of the ocean, hence it became known as Evil Ocean Water. It's not really clear if it actually managed to absorb the entire ocean, and I personally believe that that's not the case. But let's take a look at how enormous it became and what kind of energy it actually holds. So when looking at this panel right here, you can clearly see up close the aircraft carrier surfing on Evil Ocean Water. This carrier is obviously inspired by the US Navy ones that are approximately 330 meters long, which deduces that the height of ocean water in this panel should be around 9.5 kilometers, more than 2 times the height of Mont Blanc and more than 11 times the height of Burj Khalifa. However, that's actually far from the truth and a very lowball estimation, since this panel happens after he gets one-shotted by Saitama's Serious Punch, resulting in splitting and flowing into different directions. But in this panel right here, you can clearly see that Evil Ocean Water can literally dwarf its own Grand Ocean Cannon, of which if you compare it to the crater that Tatsumaki first created, you'd find out that Ocean Grand Cannon's width is actually 3.3 kilometers. Logically speaking, the height of Evil Ocean Water, based on this panel, is around 60 times the width of the cannon, putting his overall height at 198 kilometers. Crazy, right? With this data in mind, using half of ocean water's height, his current potential energy was capped at multi-continental level, and the cannon that seemingly can spam multiple times exerts around 294 megatons of energy, putting it at mountain level of destructive capacity. However, that doesn't seem to be right, since Garu at this point should be at least continental to multi-continental in terms of attack potency and durability, and was still heavily damaged by this same cannon. So it's safe to assume that the Ocean Grand Cannon exerts much more than just mountain level of destructiveness. Alright, so here's the gist. Evil Natural Water's durability increases the more size he gains. As we've seen prior, that Dark Shine was able to one-shot it with his punch, and Garu was also capable of doing the same thing with consecutive kicks, but ultimately required a serious punch from Saitama to completely shatter it. And what's funny enough, it was still able to survive after the fact shrunk to a very small size. You see, what I'm alluding to in this matter is that Evil Natural Water has no vital weak points to hit, which makes it extremely difficult to kill. It can always sneak away and shrunk itself without anybody noticing. Now let's talk about another important factor that this entity possesses, which is despite literally being mindless with no nervous system, it can still somehow come up with ways to escape dangerous situations. This was mind-blowing to a genius-like child emperor who stated that despite his vast knowledge, he has no understanding how this actually works. He can also absorb water from air and can assimilate any liquid's properties such as oil if absorbed. Now last thing I want to mention is this monster's huge potential of becoming one with the planet. If we consider that the One Punch Man planet is the same as ours, which I highly doubt it, that means about 71% of Earth's surface is water covered. And let's say if evil natural water goes unchecked, he can literally be impossible to kill for those who doesn't have planetary levels of destructiveness, making him a legit god level threat. With that being said, can one monster from the One Punch Man verse defeat every single character from One Piece? Despite the One Piece plot assuring us that devil fruit users are a rarity in this verse, most of the pirates or marines our main characters encountered are in fact devil fruit users. I mean, I get it, the characters we meet aren't even a part of 10% of the population in the One Piece verse, but at least 2 or 3 characters in a certain crew aside from Shanks's are devil fruit users. So what I'm generally getting at, devil fruit users makes up a staggering percentage of characters we had the privilege to see. But in this video, we obviously aren't going to talk about every single one and how they deal with this monster, but more so talk about the top tiers in this verse, the Yonkos, the Admirals, etc. Out of all these characters, only Shanks doesn't have a devil fruit. Whitebeard and Blackbeard can use earthquakes that can tilt the sea and was stated capable of destroying the world. Kaido can transform into a literal dragon that can fly and burst fire from his mouth. Big Mom can interact, manipulate, and extract souls. Luffy can affect and transform his surroundings into rubber. Aokiji, Kizaru, and Akainu can use elemental abilities that allows them to control magma, ice, and light. This is obviously an oversimplification of what they can do with their abilities, but with having all of this in mind, it's very important to establish how strong these characters are, otherwise why even make this video? You see, when talking about the high tier characters in this verse, aka the Emperors and the Admirals, since the Yonko are stated to be relative and evenly matched according to Ace's novel, they should all fall under country level to continental levels in terms of attack potency. This is due to multiple calculations such as Luffy and Kaido's sky split and Whitebeard tilting the sea. The Admirals on the other hand contentiously could be argued to being scaled at the same level due to Akainu's statement having the greatest power of any element, but granting them country level to large countries should be viable for now. Most of these characters also has mastery over Haki and can use it to its fullest extent. They can amp their attacks in different ways, can sense attacks and basically have a sort of precognition, and some can intimidate their opponents with their sheer will. But with all of this being said, how would the One Piece verse, specifically the devil fruit users, handle evil natural water? Alright, now it's pretty self-explanatory that all what evil ocean water needs to do is to envelop these characters in its body and basically get the dub. They wouldn't even have the option to swim or try to fight back since they would be very weakened by the water. So the question we have right now, is it really that simple? Now this would obviously go differently, depends on the circumstances they would have at hand. Either the One Piece characters has to face evil ocean water on land or on the ocean, which version of this monster are they facing, and what happens if evil ocean water absorbs the One Piece oceans in its entirety. So first, let's start with breaking down what some of the One Piece characters can do with their abilities. You see, many of you would argue that the key here would be Aokiji. Maybe he can literally freeze evil ocean water from the get-go before expanding, as we've seen him before freeze an entire ocean just for an old man to reach the next island. But the extent of how much he can freeze is very shaky. We don't really know how much depth he can cover, especially since there appeared to be a limit when he was chasing down Law's submarine. However, I'll go ahead and say on paper, maybe he can freeze evil ocean water in his initial appearance before expanding, and that's obviously with accounting that this monster wouldn't retaliate and break out of the ice like he did with Child Emperor, or simply attack Aokiji from the get-go as soon as he senses his hostility towards him, since if he is fast enough to attack Garu on 2 different occasions, surely he can do the same thing to any One Piece character. If you look at the high-speed meta in both series, you'd see that when you rely on certain lasers being as fast as light, then someone like Casual and Atomic Samurai has been calced to move and react at 4 times the speed of light. Comes aligned with Luffy in Egghead reacting to Kizaru's lasers that has been calced to move at the same speed. But then you have characters like Platinum and Flash who has been shown to being remarkably faster than most characters in the series, including Atomic atomic samurai. And not only is Garu faster than both of them, he also evolved to a point where he perception blitzed Platinum when just seconds ago they were relative. And even with this in mind, he was still tagged by the Grand Ocean Cannon. So strictly speaking, even if you argue that the One Piece characters can move as someone as like Garu at that point, it's still very silly to think that they would not get tagged, not even once. This monster's Grand Ocean Cannon would certainly bypass Logia's intangibility, since he's literally attacking them with their natural weakness that would act even worse than Haki itself, paired with its tremendous destructive power that can hurt continental to multi-continental beings. However, there's also another important possibility that should be discussed, which is that evil ocean water could be resistant to being frozen in the first place, since he already assimilated the properties of oil against Child Emperor, so maybe he would be able to overcome it, or by the very least slightly halt it for enough time to attack back. In theory, Akainu and Kaido could also vaporize him with their heat and magma attacks if they choose to spam it, but just the sheer speed and power of his cannon seems to be a big obstacle to overcome. Big Mom can never extract evil ocean water's soul, since this monster doesn't even have a nervous system to be afraid to begin with. Same argument goes for trying to intimidate him with Conqueror's Haki. And while yes, Whitebeard can surely control the path of a part of the ocean with his earthquake abilities by creating tsunamis or tilting the sea, evil ocean water unfortunately is a conscious water that can just bring it back to its original path. So now that we established that these relevant abilities would most unlikely not make a difference, what about their physical attacks? Are they strong enough to just simply destroy it? Honestly speaking, I don't think any of these characters individually can exert the same energy levels as Saitama used to shatter evil ocean water, which is 42 exatons of TNT. And even if they did, this monster still wouldn't be killed and would appear later on. Now imagine any other character or crew having to fight this monster on the ocean. For a retrospect, this is the Thousand Sunny and Giant Luffy compared to a shattered very low bolt size of evil ocean water. He can certainly do the same things Zunisha did to Jack's crew against any ship on One Piece, regardless of what devil fruit ability their crew has. They would literally be attacked by an extremely fast 3 km of range of an attack that can hurt multi-continental beings. It's just the chances to survive this, especially for devil fruit users, is extremely low. Now, what happens if evil ocean water goes to the One Piece verse and expand in its ocean? Their planet is already speculated to being much more bigger than ours, absorbing oceans like the South Blue, East Blue, North Blue, West Blue, and Grand Line would literally be an overkill for One Piece. Remember that this monster didn't even absorb the whole ocean and still required to exert moon level of energy in terms of attack potency to destroy it. If he expanded in both worlds, whether it's in One Piece or One Punch Man, he would literally be a legit god level threat that simply cannot be stopped if you don't talk about the top tiers in One Punch Man. So at the end of the day, it would require a full force of many characters in the One Piece verse combined to even have a slight chance to defeat it. The Devil Fruit users in particular would be in much more big trouble, since all of its attacks are their natural weakness, and the Grand Ocean Cannon is just too fast and has the range to attack anyone. So this right here is just not close.